don't hit that skip button because I have huge news for you. The Rewind of the Living Dead t shirt lives. It is here. It is available to purchase. Oh, yes, I'm not kidding. We finally got our Rewind of the Living Dead t shirt out, and it's amazing. It is printed by the same company that prints for Cavity Colors and Fright Rags, which, if you're a hardcore horror fan who buys a lot of horror t shirts, I know I do, you know that's the very best and highest quality because we couldn't do anything less for our fans. It's an amazing full color design designed by Jason Ragosta. It's very cool. It features a zombified myself, a zombified Damon, and it looks just like an awesome horror shirt because that's what we want, because we're horror fans too. So we wanted to make a t-shirt that you could really sink your teeth into. Go to rewindofthelivingdead.bigcartel.com. Again, that's rewindofthelivingdead.bigcartel.com to get your t-shirt today. Rewind of the Living Dead is a review show, so spoilers are ahead.
Writer and director Stephen Cognetti didn't necessarily set out to create a horror movie when he got into filmmaking, but there was something very attractive about the genre, especially when dealing with a budget for an independent film. Driven by his love for abandoned buildings and found footage style that was inspired by the movie Lake Mungo, Cognetti set his film inside a creepy old hotel where a group of friends have gathered to transform the space into a haunted house perfect for Halloween, along with a documentary that's being made about what actually happened on a tragic opening night. The final result was a found footage classic that sits in rarefied air alongside movies such as The Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity.
What happened that night at the Abaddon Hotel? What is that?
It's everything.
Sarah, have you watched those?
No.
So you have no idea what's on them?
How beautiful is this?
Hell House.
In the latest episode of Rewind of the Living Dead, we're going to keep the cameras rolling and hope opening night doesn't kill us all as we review the 2015 film House LLC. Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm David Martin.
And I'm Patrick the Inanimate Clown, or am I?
You should be wearing a clown mask right now. That would really say.
I know. Yeah, I should just have a clown mask just staring back at Damon on the other side of Zoom.
Here's the thing. Let me just get this out of the way right now. I am not I do not have coulrophobia. I'm not like afraid of clowns, inherently afraid of clowns. But dude, I will give Stephen Cognetti credit because he's got the creepy ass clown thing down to a science with this movie House LLC.
Yeah, no, these are great. They're great clowns. I mean, I actually saw this Halloween just passed, and we take the kids out for their trick-or-treating kind of a little bit earlier. I saw some younger kids in the House LLC clown outfits, and I was like, fuck yes, dude. Like, okay, Damon, we're talking about House LLC tonight, the original that kind of started it all. Maybe some of our listeners are wondering why we aren't just talking about House LLC origins. That there's a good reason for that, and maybe we'll tease that later. But we're talking about the original tonight because I think this is, Damon, probably what is fair to say one of the better found footage movies ever made.
Yeah, it's a really, really well done movie. Also, be clear, this movie is 8 years old, so we are absolutely spoiling everything. And it is available right now on Shudder. Hey, Shudder.
Oh, hi, Shudder.
So you can watch it there. I think it's available several places actually streaming.
Yeah.
I know it's on Shudder. Actually, the director's cut is on Shudder, so that's actually a little extra footage you could get on there.
Okay.
House. So I went. This is just totally random story. I was returning a package at a UPS store right before Halloween. And I walked in as I'm waiting in line. The clerk and a guy in line were talking about horror movies. And they're like, "Oh, did you like this? Blah blah blah." And so I just mind my own business. I walk up to the counter, and the same guy was waiting on me, and he's like, "Do you have any favorite horror movies?" And I was like, "Actually, I host a horror movie podcast." And he's like, "So I guarantee you have horror movies." It's like, "I do." And he's like, "What's your favorite like top 5 movies that really scare you?" And I rattled off a couple like The Descent, Session 9, and I mentioned House LLC. I was a late arriver to this movie, Patrick. I did not see this when it first came out. I think the first time I watched it was last year because we did our best of 2022 episode. We talked about films that we had kind of seen during the year that were kind of new to us. And the one I mentioned was House LLC because I had not seen it before. When I watched it last year for the first time, it was a rare movie that actually scared me and actually freaked me out. Like it was really like, and I say this all the time. We say this all the time on the show, Patrick. You and I are desensitized in a lot of ways. It takes a lot to freak us out. There were a couple legitimately terrifying moments in this film where I jumped out of my seat and I was like, "Oh shit!" So right out the gate, let me just say that this movie got me several times in a way that a lot of movies, not even getting into the found footage genre, do not get me.
And I'm an even later Johnny come lately to it because I watched it based off of you mentioning that in our best of from last year. And I sat down with the wife and watched it and I go, Damon says this shit is scary. Let's check it out. Even though like I came in very skeptical because I'm not the biggest found footage guy. I came out of it going, yeah, they fuck shit up in this movie. This is a good, and it's fun. I would say it's not like a movie that scares me, but it's a movie with great scares, if that makes sense. Like it's just they're crafted really well. And I'm like, damn, like I got to give it up to this movie. They fuck around. And yeah. And then you come to learn that House LLC is indeed a beloved movie and a beloved franchise at this point. Now I think we're 4 movies deep. Origins is the 4th movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah, there's House LLC 1, 2, and 3, and then they did House Origins: The Carmichael Manor, which just came out this year. That's the new one. That's House LLC Origins is the title. So I've already given a bit of my opinion on the movie, Patrick, and we'll get into the deeper aspects of this film and categories later. But can I kick things off right here? And I know this sounds like I'm starting things off on a bit of a negative spin, but I promise you I'm not, because right away you can tell that we both like this movie. This is a really well done movie. But that being said, I always like on this show, and people will tweet at me and message me about this all the time. When we always do our segment of Could We Survive This Horror Film, and I always talk about haunted house movies, how I'm like, the way you survive a haunted house, you just get the fuck out. Like, just leave. Like, that's why I always have issues with haunted house movies for that reason, because the logic should never escape you just to get out. That's why I actually enjoyed a movie like Insidious or even Paranormal Activity when you realize that it's not the house that's haunted, it's the person that's haunted. And so they kind of get around that whole just leave the house kind of thing. Because generally speaking, Amityville Horror, I actually like the Amityville Horror, but just get the fuck out.
Right.
You have a very complicated I talk about my complicated relationship with David Gordon Green. You have a complicated relationship with found footage movies. Can you explain your kind of love-hate relationship with the found footage genre?
Well, Damon, it's really weird because I think my first true exposure to found footage was the Blair Witch Project, which scared the shit out of me. Back in 1999, when I was 18 years old, I watched that movie and it freaked me the fuck out because they tried their damnedest to make me believe that what I saw was real. And even though I knew it wasn't real, it was very convincing. It just was. Like, I think what the directors and the actors did was try to put us in a scenario where everything felt as real as possible, meaning they didn't even kind of like go into the supernatural. The supernatural could have been there and it could not have been there. So I really did feel like I was watching found footage. It's how it felt. And so there was something raw and scary about that. However, the Blair Witch Project produced an entire genre of film after that. And that entire genre of found footage doesn't know how to replicate what the Blair Witch did, with very few exceptions. Most found footage is what I would call like running footage, which is it's just the camera's just on for inexplicable reasons. The Blair Witch had reasons for the camera to be on. Almost every found footage movie after that tries desperately to convince you that we need to be recording when, as Damon would normally say, just get the fuck out. There'd be no reason to fucking have a camera and be pointing it at things and going, wait, let me record this as we're being chased by somebody with an axe or a ghost who is throwing us across a room. Let me keep the camera going. Like it's always laborious. It's always just overwrought, obtuse. They're trying to act like something is real and you can feel the acting. That's like, and Damon, I watch a lot of way more found footage than I should for somebody who's not a huge fan of the genre. It's just almost always done very poorly because the bar was set so high with the Blair Witch. I do, however, have an exception. And that is there's a couple of movies out there, Lake Mungo, which you mentioned in the intro, which Lake Mungo actually inspired House LLC, which is what we're talking about. These three movies, Blair Witch, Lake Mungo, and House LLC, have something in common. They attempt to show you what looks like footage captured by a complete amateur. The edits are choppy. It feels like you'll cut into footage kind of late, and like they're already talking about something, they're already doing something. It looks like somebody picked up a camera because they were in the middle of something happening and decided to record because something was starting to happen. That's what these movies have in common. So you get the sense you're actually watching found footage. You get the sense that they captured something that they probably wouldn't intend to capture normally. These movies do that where most found footage, the bulk of it, the 90 whatever percent of it, is trying to pretend it's found footage when it's clearly not. You know, House LLC and Lake Mungo and the Blair Witch all have sort of grainy, weird, like hard to see footage at times. That's scary. There's something realistic about that. And when something is realistic, it plays a little scarier to me for somebody who's so hard to scare. The Blair Witch, they actually degraded their film that they shot to make it look more found than it was. Like they took the time to make those details. So my relationship with found footage is there's three really great movies. And then there's like Paranormal Activity, which is sort of somewhere in the middle. And then there's all these other ones, which are like just pretending to be found footage. And it reeks of fakery. It reeks of disingenuous clot. Like, I don't like it, Damon. I don't want it. I don't watch a lot of it. Looking for those diamonds in the rough, like the Blair Witch, like Lake Mungo, like House LLC. They are few and far between.
So I agree with almost everything you said right there, although I will admit I probably like a few more found footage movies than you do, although not many. The one big difference is I really do like Paranormal Activity. I know you're kind of in the middle on that one. I really do like that one.
Yeah, I'm not in love with that one.
Yeah, but by and large, I'm not a huge found footage person. My biggest issue with found footage is I don't want to repeat what you just said, but my biggest, because you know me, I say it all the time, I'm the story guy. I'm the plot guy. And when you make inexplicable decisions in your story, then I lose interest in believing it. One thing that works so well about the Blair Witch Project is these are three filmmakers who went in the woods shooting a documentary and they got lost. They can't get out. They tried desperately to get out and they can't get out. So they're trapped there. And at that point, them documenting everything that's happening is almost like a diary of the dead in a way. Like they're basically saying, like, we may not make it out of here, so here's our last will and testament, almost, is the way they're kind of filming it. Makes total sense why you would do that. Now, I know you bump up against Paranormal Activity, but even that one, I would say, while they're filming, paranormal things are happening around the house. They're trying to capture it on camera. So they give you a reason why they're recording nonstop, and they have all these cameras set up in the house and all this kind of stuff. House LLC is another example of doing it right, where they're all going to build this haunted attraction at this hotel, this abandoned hotel in upstate New York, or outside the city of New York, and they have a financial reason to be there. They have a financial reason not to get out. This is their livelihoods. If they leave with nothing, and they also leave broke. So you have a reason to stay there, just like Paranormal Activity. This is their house. Like, they own it, and they're not totally convinced of what's actually happening. Obviously, again, I like the twist in that movie. Lake Mungo, again, another movie. You know why they're there. They have purpose of being there. And then you also have purpose of why the cameras are on. And I know that sounds like such a weird thing to critique a found footage movie on, but that's just the absolute truth. Because when you start, like you said, recording conversations that make no sense, why are you recording this? Why are you doing this? Why are you not just leaving? Like, why are you not just getting out? That's, like I said, I bump up against that constantly in haunted house movies. Just get out. I know it ruins the movie, but give me a reason you have to be there. You have to stay. Give me some. And House LLC does that pretty brilliantly by saying, this is our life. We're investing our money and our livelihood into this one attraction we do per year. If this goes off, if this goes awry, we have nothing. We have to be here. We have to stay. Blair Witch Project, they're stuck. They're lost in the woods. They can't get out. So these are movies that give you a reason to understand, A, why they're there and why they're staying there, and B, why they're filming. Found footage as a genre gave a lot of amateur filmmakers a route into filmmaking that didn't require a lot of money. Now, in that regard, I think it's amazing because
Yes.
I am all for people being creative. Whatever gets you to be creative, whether it's music, art, writing, drawing, or filmmaking, I am all for being creative. And this is a great, people make movies on their phones now, which, is something you couldn't do a decade or 15 years ago. People are literally shooting full movies on their iPhones. I am all for everything to do with that. And I am even all for the found footage genre. But the reality is, if you're going to make a found footage movie, my advice as a viewer, because I certainly haven't made films, but my advice to viewers is exactly what you said. Just like I always say, give us a reason. Give us a reason why you're there. Give us a reason why you're staying there. And give us a reason why you're using a camera the entire time.
Please give us a legitimate reason. That's why I said Paranormal Activity kind of exists in the middle. While I don't enjoy that movie, I don't enjoy watching that movie, they're trying to capture paranormal activity that's happening in their house. They're trying to document it. They're desperately trying to make sure that the cameras are rolling, so when it happens, people don't think they're insane. Like, that makes sense, at least. It just wasn't entertaining. I think Paranormal Activity really is what kicked off the idea of like acting too much in front of the camera. It does that a lot, and then it seemed like everything that came after Paranormal Activity was about that. It was like, let's just basically make our regular fiction movie that we were planning on making, but we'll put like the whole POV of the entire movie comes from one camera person, or one camera's perspective, and it creates what you said, this weird situation where it's like, why the fuck are you even recording this conversation? And it comes off very weird. And I know that found footage genre fans actually love that stuff. They love that style of acting that is like trying really hard. They love like the extra information and all the weird buildup that like doesn't help a movie normally. Found footage fans love that shit. It's just like, I don't know, like, why did this pop into my head, Damon? Because we're sickos. Like furries, okay? Furries want to dress up like a fox, or they want to dress up like a rabbit, and they like that. That's what they want to do. I'm not mad at them for doing that. Not my thing. I think that's the point. It's something that has no appeal to me, but like those people are into that, and that's how found footage people are. They're like, yeah, we're into like really annoying main characters who are like insistent on filming everything, even though it makes zero sense. The proof is in the pudding, Damon. To this day, one of our highest viewed YouTube videos is me and you ripping Outwaters a new one. Like, we just didn't like it. But found footage people, they're like, oh, you're reviewing Outwaters, great. We got the most views we've ever gotten on YouTube. But they were like, oh, these guys really don't like this stuff. Outwaters, I couldn't find anyone who said anything bad about it. It was being talked about a lot when it came out. Skinamarink was another one. I went to go see it because there was a lot of buzz around it. I wouldn't necessarily call Skinamarink a found footage film. I think it's very experimental, I think is what I would call Skinamarink. But Outwaters, very found footage, very intentionally being found footage, and very much didn't work for you and I, because for you, story wasn't making any sense. For me, story wasn't making any sense. And I just don't like this genre of like, let's turn the camera on, leave it on, and bore people to death for like 70 to 80% of the movie. House LLC, coming all the way back around, doesn't do that. It does something so clever, and it's a little bit Blair Witchy, but it puts its own twist on it. And I noticed this watch around, because this was my second viewing. What Stephen Cognetti did that was so smart was he said, let me make the footage feel very real, very authentic. Even some of it is like people that came to the haunted house on the night of the opening of the haunted house and filming on their phones, and it looks kind of scraggly and hard to tell. Let me compile that footage, the footage of the group that is actually putting on the haunted house, and then let me intercut it with a documentary. Like a documentary team who is now talking about the events of that fateful night when something went terribly wrong at the Hell House. That's clever. And I can see why he said Lake Mungo influenced him, because Lake Mungo takes it a step further, and it's like the only footage you really see is footage from the girl who went missing, and it's really plays like a true crime movie more than anything. It just has these weird, strange little elements in it. So Stephen Cognetti takes that a step further and goes, let me make a documentary, a fake documentary to interweave with this footage. So the footage plays very, very real. It plays very authentic. And then when shit starts getting really weird in the house, that very real and authentic footage, Damon, it taps into some sort of horror that I feel is very primal for you and I, which is like, you're afraid of the thing in the corner that you don't quite understand. It's not overtly anything. They never spell it out. They never say, but when you're a kid and you're walking down a dark corridor and you see a shape in the background, in the distance there, it freaks you out. House LLC taps into that.
Yeah, they do. As you said, they attack it in a very smart way. They attack it in the way of giving us all angles. I love the documentary that is basically being made about this incident. So you're interlacing that with the found footage stuff from the incident. They're giving you a reason why they're getting this footage. They're interviewing the last known survivor of the Abaddon Hotel massacre, or the last known survivor of the people who worked there, the people who started,
Right.
who started the Hell House. And then she brings along all these tapes and says, this is everything. Like, this is everything that happened. Security footage, everyone's video cameras, all the tapes and everything. And so they're all kind of discovering this in real time. And then you interlace it with the documentary of people who were there, first responders, other documentarians, investigators, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of get like a three-pronged attack and approach of what you're seeing here. And it's not simply, we're having this private conversation that no one in their right mind would film right now. Let's film it.
Right.
Because that's where we start bumping up against found footage, because in reality, these people, no matter how much you want them to believe they'd be filming, they wouldn't be filming. Now, I could argue that in this day and age, there would be the annoying teenagers, like influencers, who would probably want to record everything, because that's the world we live in now. But generally speaking, unless you're doing that kind of a movie, which I'm sure there are versions of that, and maybe they're done very well, you got to make it make sense. And this movie makes it make sense. Why they're filming, why they're there, why they're staying there, and then you interlace it with the documentary of the investigation, the mystery surrounding what actually happened. One of the things I love most about this movie was the opening sequence where they first introduce the investigation, and they show this is footage from a person who attended the opening night of Hell House. And you see, that, as you said, the kind of grainy footage of a person in line. We're next in line. Now, people do that all the time. Going into concerts, going into whatever you're going into, you're in line for whatever. People record that stuff all the time. So you go in and you're seeing very grainy footage, very shaky footage, what you would imagine someone holding a phone camera or whatever would look like. And you see these little things like the cart in the kitchen falling over and crashing, people running. You see somebody running and going into a door and bursting through a worker, and you're like, is this supposed to happen? And it's all very kind of confusing, and it's all very happening. Then everyone's screaming and bloody, and everyone just kind of runs out of there. You see the fire trucks coming, the police cars coming, everything's going mayhem. That starts the film, and you're kind of like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here? They revisit it at the very end when you finally get to opening night, and then you understand who is running through that door, why that cart fell over. All these little things start coming back together, and it's the pieces of the puzzle that start to fit, and you start to understand why this all happened. You and I talk all the time when we review films, Patrick. We say, if you show us something early, make sure it pays off later. If you're telling us there's somebody that has a special ability early in a movie, like this person can, whatever. I'm not gonna name a million examples. Like this person can do this thing. By the end of the movie, they better do that thing, or why did you mention it? Like, what purpose did it serve if they didn't actually follow through and do that, or whatever it is? You know what I mean? You can't show us a map and then by the end you're lost getting to where you're going. You showed us you have the map. Like, use the fucking map. Like, that's the point. And so setting it up so brilliantly at the beginning where you're kind of confused, you don't really know what's going on, and then it pays off at the end when you actually get to know all the characters, you know what they've gone through to get here, you know why they stayed here, they got to opening night, mayhem goes crazy, and then you see you revisit that footage from the beginning, and you know why this is all happening. So it's just really well constructed. It's not the most complicated story in the world. I mean,
No.
I particularly like these films that take place in a haunted attraction, not a haunted house, like a haunted attraction. I really like Haunt, the movie Haunt. Hellfest is a lot of fun. The Houses October Built is a movie that I enjoy. It's not the greatest, but it's a fun movie. I love haunted attractions. So like movies set in there, it's like a natural for a horror film to be set there. I like that they're doing this. Like, this is what they do for a living. They go into these places, they set up the haunted houses, and then everyone comes out for Halloween and goes and visits them. It's like the contained horror. You can go there and get scared, but know you're safe. So everything about this works really well, and the way they structure it pays off in so many ways throughout this film.
You're right. It really, that setting of the inside of a haunted house, and really the meat of the movie, is basically just the footage of the crew getting the haunted house together and seeing that things aren't quite right in the house. It's really, it's interesting. First they're kind of combing through the house to see what they bought, to see what they're going to do with this place. And then it jumps again. Like, we don't go through some long buildup. It jumps ahead in time to them having set it up already. And it's kind of neat just to kind of see the behind the scenes of like people putting a haunted house together. And there's creepy shit. They've put all this creepy shit around. Here's a hangy, bloody doll. And here's like a crazy looking motherfucker, like, and there's a lot of dark hallways. There's not a lot of lighting. Most of the lighting kind of comes from the camera because they're filming everything that they're up to. And then you get the like, what the fuck was that? Like, what was that? And it lives in a very natural way with the characters because they're busy doing things and then something interrupts them. But the setting itself is already creepy. That haunted house setting really works. One of my favorite, I know we're going to talk scares in a little bit here with categories, but the guy that mostly has the cameras is this guy named Paul. He's kind of their shitty buddy. Like everyone's got that one friend. They're like, it's fucking Paul. Like, and he's usually named Paul, interestingly enough. But yeah, he's doing most of the filming, and he's having a little evening diary of their making of, and that person walks behind him into his room, like completely silhouetted. Just Damon, I'm going to say it multiple times this podcast, taps into some primal fear that we would have. Like if you're just hanging out in your bedroom and everything's dark and you just see a dark shape come into your room, it triggers something in your very most primal fears to go, that ain't right. He tries to play it off. He's like, yeah, is it? He thought it was Sarah sleepwalking, which they set up, Sarah sleepwalks. He's like, oh, you sleepwalking? and then just the shape just turns around and walks out of the room. It was just so perfectly simple. Like, it doesn't overthink itself at all. And believe me, Outwaters included, we've talked about found footage overthinking itself often, or I have, because I've watched so much found footage. It overthinks the way you need to get scared. This movie is just like, let's scare you on the basics, and the basics really work.
Yeah, I think that probably speaks to what one of the things I enjoy most about this movie is they don't try to reinvent the wheel.
No,
They know what scares you and they use it to your advantage. Another great scene that I love, which was so simple, and I know I keep hammering this drum, Patrick. It makes sense why they're doing it. Is they're in a hallway and they're testing their lighting system. So when opening night happens, they want to film it so they can see it, so they can know what it looks like. Now, again,
makes total sense.
The logic, this is something you would actually do and why you would do it. So they kind of lock him in this darkened hallway. He's filming. The guy goes upstairs to the control board. He turns on the strobe lights, and he's supposed to be recording just to see how it looks. So they can understand, did they need to change it? Did they put a different light here? You would do this. This is something you would actually do. You would have a reason to be there. You'd have a reason to be filming. And in the middle of little strobes, you see the figures start moving a little bit. They're not like coming at him, but you see like flashes, like there's one, and then there's three, and then there's like coming closer to him. He starts panicking and freaking out. He's like, turn the light, get me the fuck out of here. And they turn the lights on, pull him out of there. Everything's back to where it was. The simplest little things, but so unbelievably effective. And as I keep saying, it makes sense. Why he's there, why he's filming, and just the littlest things. You're not seeing some creature ghoul just come running at him. Just flat. And even you, the viewer, as you're watching, you're like, did I just see something? And then at the very end, brilliant moment, they do a freeze frame as they go back into the documentary part where they see it, and you see these two things kind of hanging out, looking at him as they kind of popped out of wherever they were hiding, and then they start going back in the documentary like, at this point, blah, blah, blah happened, and so on and so forth. But that whole scene is set up so perfectly, and it works so well. It's very simple. They're not badgering over the head with trying to make you jump out of your pants. But when you see it, it is freaky as hell, and you notice it. You're like, did I see that? Did that? Oh, shit, it is happening. And then, it's over. Just really, really small little effective ways to make it work.
And you know what's so great about the follow-up to that scene is that they don't immediately go, well, the house must be fucking haunted. Now, when you cut back to the documentary of this footage, they start to talk about the history of the house, and they go, oh, well, there actually was like a kind of a tumultuous like past for this house. But when you get back into the actual found footage, they're like, is there somebody fucking around with us? Like, that's their immediate idea. And like a lot of that blame goes on Paul, because again, Paul's kind of the shithead guy in their group, and they're like, he's probably fucking with us, or he's trying to fuck with us. They also consider that they brought actors in. They consider, they make all these logical considerations for what they're seeing. And there are points that escalate in this movie where like the scare gets too crazy, and they're like, whoa, okay, that's too much. And then they're able to, in the found footage, justify like, you know what, it was fucking Paul. Paul's fucking with us because he's all fucked up and he's being weird. Like that's how I'm going to justify what we just saw. Like it makes sense when you hear them kind of rattling it off. You go, yeah, of course they would shut this down. They wouldn't go like, these are clearly spirits, and then they find a book, and then blah, blah, blah. All that bullshit that happens in so many other movies. Stephen Cognetti knew, like, this time around, I need to make these characters think logically. Think and act logically. They do, and things go wrong. Now, if that sounds familiar to our faithful listeners, I've said this time and time again. You want to make a horror effective, make your main characters make logical choices that end up not working. That's where the scares actually lie. They go, logically speaking, we need to do this, this, and this to stay safe. And it doesn't work. That's scary. Making illogical choices, while a staple of horror, some of those things don't always land. Sometimes they do. It's very rare, but they will sometimes land. But they're making logical choices and shit doesn't work out for them. And you just go, God damn, that's scary. God damn, that worked. Like it just does, because you hear that whole group just going like, there's no, no one goes, guys, I think it's probably a ghost.
Yeah.
Guys, I think like nobody does that in this movie. Nobody does it. They keep trying to find their way. And even as people start disappearing, and I think at one point Paul like becomes catatonic or something. They're just like, every ounce of our savings, every bit of our life is like put into this haunted house. We need to make it work, and it's going to happen tomorrow night. Like again, they just skip to the footage that's important, and they go tomorrow night. We got to make this thing happen. So it sucks that like Paul's fucking going insane, and that somebody's fucking with us. But let's just get this done, and then we can move on. Like we've got a month to scare the shit out of people. Let's just make that happen. And then the opening night, things go terribly wrong. And that portion of the movie, Damon, I loved that sequence because it was so much more chaotic than I remembered it. That added to the realism of it. They go back to that footage that you were talking about of the two people in line filming the scary movie, or the haunted house rather, and the chaos that ensues. Like it didn't hit me the first time just how fucking chaotic it was, to the point that you don't really see what happens. And that's scarier. You see the panic, you hear the panic, you understand that things are going wrong, and you see glimpses of scary things happening. And then they can and then the documentarians in the movie kind of comb over the footage and look for a little snippet in the light, a little something in the shadow, a little something. It feels like I'm finding footage, Damon. Oh shit. Like it's just the name of the damn genre. They actually respect what the genre is, and it works out. It taps into something that goes, I think that might be real. Now the ending of the movie finally kind of like circles back, and now you're just with the documentarians again, and Sarah, who's the lone survivor of Hell House. I wasn't like, I don't know about you, I just wasn't in love with like her final sequence. It felt out of step with everything I'd seen before that. But that might be my biggest gripe with this whole movie. What was your take on that?
Yeah, like it's a good twist. Like it's a cool little twist.
Yeah.
Sarah is the lone survivor of the original Hell House team, and no one knew she survived, but she reached out to the documentary crew and said, I made it. Like, if you'd like to talk to me, I'll sit and talk with you guys. So they interview her. She presents them with all the tapes, the footage. And when they get done, it's a very exhausting conversation. And she's like, I'm going to go. She's like, do you want us to get you a room so you can rest? No, I got a room. It's 2C. Come find me. We'll continue this later. Okay, great. So the documentarians continue their work. They plan on, listen, we got to go. Because she actually says, have you been to the Abaddon? She's like, well, it's all boarded up. And they're like, well, we got to go. Like, we got to break in there and see what this place looks like. So they're like, we're going to do it at dawn, right before anyone gets there. It's not night. We're going to go right at dawn. We're going to investigate this place. And so they break in through the boards. They see all the little things. You see blood trails, and you see the, shit that was knocked over. And they also do a great job of interlacing that original video. So you remember the specific moments, the cart falling over, the door opening to the upstairs where they ran up to the production center, all that kind of stuff. And then as they're exploring this creepy-ass abandoned hotel, they go up the stairs and they see the door and it says 2C. And the director and the camera person who's working with her are both kind of like, didn't she say she was in 2C? And again, logically, the director, the camera person, she's like, let's see what it is. He's like, don't open that fucking door. What are you doing? And then she opens the door and there's Sarah in there. And, what the assumption is that Sarah was dead this entire time. And she's basically a haunted ghost who lured them into the hotel so the hotel could have more victims, more or less. I didn't love it necessarily. I didn't love the aspect of her being a ghost. You know what I mean? I totally love that idea. But I did appreciate the twist because they didn't overdo it. And the way she does it, the way that Sarah presents it, she says, oh, I'm in room 2C. And when they go down to the hotel lobby, they're like, hey, we're trying to find Sarah. she's in room 2C, and there's no letters on our hotel rooms. And they're like, oh, maybe she got it mixed up. And so they go to the Abaddon. They have a reason to go to the Abaddon. They're like, we've talked about this. We've seen the footage. We've seen all this footage. We need to see this place now. It's been abandoned for a year or however many years they say it's been. We need to go in and see this place. They pry open the door and they go in. And it's as creepy as you can imagine it being.
There, but there is one little key element there. In the documentary, they go, the archivist stayed behind to finish up the footage, and in that footage, you see that Sarah was killed. So you get this superior position, knowing Sarah's not alive now, and that they're heading into the belly of the beast. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. And the guy's trying to call them and reach out, and she's like, "I'll call him back."
Great tie together. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when they open the door, because I do love it. They're like, "Oh, 2C," and know what Sarah said her room number was? And the guy's like, "Don't open that door." And the documentarian, being the overly curious, whatever you want to call it, decides to open the door, and there they find Sarah, who is very much not alive and has lured them there to get trapped and killed. I didn't, the whole ghost aspect of it, I was kind of like, it's cool. But I did like the twist. I did like the fact that she was luring them to the hotel. Now, if they did a different version where she never died and she's just been so traumatized now that she just wants to lure them back there to experience the same terror that she cannot escape, and then she just kills them because she's just a fucking Looney Tune now, I'm okay with that. The ghost thing, it kind of bumped up against a little bit because it just seemed weird. But then again, like I said, we're dealing with a haunted hotel. So there's obviously some things going on here that are spirits or haunting or poltergeist or whatever. So yeah, I didn't bump up against it. I didn't love it, but I did like how they tied it back around, because
the story was good.
Sarah, no one knew that Sarah survived. They didn't know anyone survived. And so like the fact that she's there, and she gave us no reason to believe that she was anything other than just traumatized. Like, you could tell she was dealing with severe PTSD from this incident. She's very quiet, very subdued. You definitely see she's seen some shit. And she's dealing with it. And so all that makes sense. But again, I didn't mind it when she's like, I'm in room 2C, come find me. And they found her all right. And then, that's pretty much the end of the film. Yeah, like, again, the ghost thing's the only thing I kind of bump up against, because it just it's, I don't know, it's just kind of weird, but I guess not really, because the whole place is haunted. So I guess, if you die there, you're stuck there, supposedly, I guess is the way they put it. So,
you know what I would have this is kind of a rewrite, and I don't mean to do that, but I think like, because the story itself, like, of her getting them to the Abaddon is great. Like, I wouldn't change anything about the story. It was just be that reveal. Like, when they open 2C, it would be kind of cool if just like, as they creep in, like, it's kind of dark in the room or something, and as she goes to like open the blinds or something, then they're attacked by the cloaked things, and then what we see in the last little bit of footage is like Sarah's body sitting up against the wall, and that callback is important for our categories. Her body sitting against that wall, kind of looking at us, like clearly dead and decomposing, and those cloaked beings kind of moving at them. Like, I think like simplifying that and making it have the effect that the rest of the movie had would have like sent this home like completely. It was just tonally a little different. Like, it just started to feel a little fictiony in that moment, but otherwise, like, the story part of it, I was fully engaged in. And I will say this about those cloaked beings. I like what they did. Stephen Cognetti, he's so smart here. He only showed them moving in little bits. It was almost like in glitches. Like, it was like in digital glitches, like you just see them be in one place and then they kind of move in another place. And you didn't see a lot of what they did. You kept a lot of the mystery going, probably again, because of the restrictions of found footage budgets and what you can do. He wisely went like, let's show less. If we show less, we leave the audience like thinking about what might have happened, and that genuinely usually works.
Yeah, I mean, again, the scares are really effective. They're not overly complicated scares, but they all work. Even that final scene when they open the door and they see Sarah, they're not, again, even in that moment, they're not like, oh, she's a possessed ghost. They're just like, this is a really traumatized woman. And then when she turns around and she's clearly dead because she's got blood and everything all over her face, like you realize she was never alive in the first place. And then out of nowhere, the cloaked figures appear, and then, everyone dies, we assume. It's effective. It works. It's not overly complicated. It just works. And it is scary because and you realize when they go into 2C, that is the room that Sarah shared with Alex. That was where they were staying when they were in the Abaddon originally. Now, one thing I didn't go back and look at, and I guess I should have because I've seen this a couple times now, I wonder, do they ever show because I know there's a scene where Paul kind of sneaks in on Alex and Sarah.
Right.
And they're like, you should be filming this. Like she's laying there in her underwear or whatever. Do they actually? I wonder. Do they show that it's 2C? After we
No, I don't remember. I just watched it, but knowing Stephen Cognetti's like attention to detail for this movie, I guarantee you 2C is on that door.
Yeah,
if I went back over and looked at it right now, I guarantee you it would be there.
That's a brilliant call. Like I love that because they specifically had him like going around the hotel, kind of filming everybody, and he goes into Alex and Sarah's room. And I bet you if I rewatched it, they would show that 2C. And that's that little minor detail that makes perfect sense. She's never left that room because that's where she was staying when they were in the hotel when she died. Again, really well done. And again, I don't really bump up against it too much. The whole ghost thing, I'm kind of a little bit like, it seems a little hokey, I guess, maybe, but I like the twist. Again, you could have just had her be traumatized that she just never left the hotel. Like she was so messed up from this whole incident that she just never left, and now she's the one luring people back there and killing them. But again, when Stephen Cognetti had this idea, he mapped it out as like a bigger story. And as we mentioned, there are 2 sequels along with the new Origins film. So he already had an idea of where he was going to eventually go with this in terms of the overall mythology behind the Abaddon Hotel and the founder and this death cult and all this kind of stuff. So I don't really have a problem with it. It's part of an overarching story. I'm fine with it. And the fact that Sarah was there, still a cool twist, just a way to end it, because when you get to the ending of the people at the House LLC, when you find out all the filmmakers, all the people who were there died, you kind of feel like that is a finality in a way. But then they give you another twist after that. Like, okay, we realize this place actually was fucking haunted. We're all dead. And then they're like, oh yeah, there's one more small little thing we have to get to. And that's the fact that Sarah has been dead this entire time. So again, I like it. I like the twist. And again, setup and execution were both done really well. It wasn't overly complicated. They're just like, hey, I'm going to go back to my room. Come find me. I'm in 2C. And it's just perfect timing when they get in the hotel and like, oh, isn't that 2C? Isn't that where Sarah said she was? And you're like, uh-oh, this is not going to end well.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great story. And that's really important to any good film. Forget about horror, forget about genre of horror. Any good film has a good story. House LLC, I think, has a great story. And it's funny because I'm not even necessarily like attached to the characters or like fully engaged in their lives, but it's just how it unfolds. It's hard to deny.
It is. And as we mentioned earlier, you talked about like Paul filming everything. And I would mention, like, we're talking about like the natural progression of how things happen and they don't immediately jump to it's ghosts and we're haunted. They're more of the idea that it's a human element. Someone's fucking with us.
Yeah.
Alex, from the very beginning, Alex is the kind of the ringleader, the guy who leads this whole thing. Like, he's kind of stamping it down even harder because he doesn't want this thing to fail. Yeah. He wants this thing to succeed. So even like there's a moment when he's talking to one of the actors who is showing up to play like the damsel in distress in the basement. And he's talking to her on a couch and Paul comes up and starts filming and kind of asking questions and like kind of hinting at like what really happened here in this hotel. Like, why did it shut down? Who actually died here? Blah, blah, blah. And even then, Alex is like basically being like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, you're going to scare this girl away. Like, we need people to come here and like, we want people to believe it's haunted, but we don't want to actually scare people who are working here away. So he's like spending the entire time. And then there's a moment later in the movie where they're all freaked out. They realize something is off about this place. And they basically go outside and they're all like, we need to leave. Like, we need to go. And Alex is, again, the voice of, When I say voice of reason, he's the voice of reality, where he's like,
He's a voice of desperation, really.
Can't go anywhere. Like, we have no other options. Like, this is make or break for us. Like, we gear up every year to this moment to make our money. If we do not, we leave here with nothing. We literally leave here with nothing. So realize that. And they're all kind of like, yeah, we are kind of screwed. Like, we're all kind of like, we're doomed to be here because we have no escape. Because if we leave before this project is finished, we all leave broke and penniless, and we have nothing to show for it. And we put all of our money and time and effort into this, and we leave with nothing, we have nothing. So, again, logically, they have to be there. They're stuck there. And Alex is really the catalyst to remind them of that. And he does it throughout the film. Like, Alex is very much the asshole leader of this group, where you kind of get like, you're kind of like, you don't really like him, but you also understand what's driving him.
He's the mayor in Jaws.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's like,
we're not closing the beach.
we had a small incident where some swimmers were apparently injured, but everything's fine. You can see the days out here great, and Amity means friendship. Yeah, exactly. So, but no, it's just a really well constructed movie, and as we said, from start to finish, this film feels genuine. It feels new. It feels genuine, new, still different. But again, all the setups, and I do love the documentary stuff in the middle. That really takes you out of the found footage and then puts you back into it at certain points. Because there's, again, some of the found footage stuff, as you said, over and over again, it's why are you filming this? Why are we here? Well, you take away that need to show everything by interlacing the documentary and the interviews and all that kind of stuff, because then you understand, like, they actually wouldn't have filmed everything. They wouldn't be filming intimate conversations and every single thing that was said. And the things that you're seeing, I would say 90% of it makes sense why they're filming it or why they're doing what they're doing. And then you interlace it with the documentary stuff to kind of fill that other gap in time, but also to explain the story, to add well-timed questions about what's actually happening here, what actually happened there. Again, it's just a really well-orchestrated movie.
Perfect, man. It really is. For me, no question, it's like top 3 found footage films I've ever seen. Not that that's a massive list, let's be honest. But I mean, in the Pantheon, there's Blair Witch is just one of the best films around. So the fact that it lives in that orbit is that's rarefied air.
Here's why I would actually argue that this film, for me personally, is like right alongside Blair Witch, and in a small way, very small way, Patrick, might have actually surpassed it. And here's why. When I saw the Blair Witch Project in 1999 when that came out?
Yeah.
I was a teenager. I was a horror movie fan, but still, a teenager. It scared the piss out of me when I saw it in the theater. Now, I've rewatched that movie 30 times since then. I still love it. Doesn't really scare me anymore, because I know everything that's coming, of course. But I still remember that visceral feeling of being in that theater when the ending of that movie, and she goes down that basement, and there's the guy standing in the corner, which will haunt me to my deathbed. But the reason why I say House LLC may have slightly surpassed the Blair Witch Project, slightly, is because I saw this a year ago when I was twisted, demented, nothing gets me fucked up Damon. And I was like, hide my eyes a couple times, jump in my seat a couple of times. I'm like, damn, that's so hard to do for me at this stage of the game. And I'm not sitting there saying I'm better than anyone because I don't get scared. I'm just saying, like, I watch so much horror. I love it, and I love the scares, but they don't get you and I the way they get some other folks. That's why a lot of times we gauge how scary a movie is based on your wife's reaction to my girlfriend's reaction, because they are the typical moviegoer. Certainly nothing wrong with being the typical moviegoer, by the way. Let me say, when you watch Martyrs, it should fuck you up. Trust me.
Yes, it should.
It should. But this movie genuinely scared me at moments. Like, there were moments of legitimate jump scares where I jumped back in my seat or I was like, oh shit, it gets shivers down my spine. That so rarely happens in this day and age. So that's why I say, in a weird way, Hell House may have actually surpassed Blair Witch in the smallest of ways, because it did it to me now, not when I was a 19-year-old or 20, whatever it was, however old I was, kid, scared out of my mind watching it in 1999. I wasn't, the sick, twisted fuck I am today.
That's a fair assessment, Damon. That is true. A lot of movies don't scare me anymore, and this is one of the ones that has been able to do it in my later years.
Yeah. So with that being said, Patrick, let's get into categories, because we do have some categories to get into with this movie. And found footage movies are always weird because, generally speaking, you're dealing with very amateur casts. Even though a lot of ways amateur directors. This was Stephen Cognetti's first film, and this is his franchise. He wrote and directed all the films. The actors in this movie are not known actors, and while some of them have gone on to do other roles, this was all for them basically the first thing they did, more or less. So when I say grading on a scale, I'm not expecting anyone here to be Leonardo DiCaprio in Killers of the Flower Moon. Let me be clear about that. But there are still some solid performances in what is ultimately an amateur film. I mean, that's really what this is. So, Patrick, who is your best performance in Hell House LLC?
My best performance, and I forgot to actually write his name in there, but the actor is named Gore Abrams, and he plays Paul, one of the least annoying camera guys ever in a found footage film. And I know what you're saying, Damon. Like, what are you talking about? Paul was so fucking annoying. The character of Paul was annoying. Why he had the camera did not make him annoying. That is the biggest problem with found footage movies. Like, the vast majority of them have this insufferable person behind the camera, because they have to be annoying and they have to have some weird obsession with filming that they have to explain, that they have to fucking like go on and on and on about constantly. Paul doesn't do that. Paul has the camera on because they're filming stuff to document them putting together the haunted house. That's why the camera's on. A couple of times he has an evening diary. But most of the time he has the camera on to document what's happening, and his interactions, while they might be a little bit annoying, are the interactions that friends just normally have. It came across very authentically. Here's my annoying friend Paul. Not like here's the annoying filmmaker. It's always like, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a documentarian, I have to have everything on, I have to have the camera on all the time. Like, they always, every fucking found footage movie has this in it now. Paul didn't have that. And it was Gore's performance to just be the troubled, annoying, weirdo friend that it rang so authentic. And that sells the movie. It really does. Because all the other interactions with everybody, it's like, it's these sort of cross-talk conversations that are sort of a little bit hard to hear because it's genuine footage. It feels like genuine footage and genuine conversations. And he injects himself into the conversations as their friend, not as a documentarian, not as somebody who just has some weird obsession with filming and has to talk about it on camera on top of that. It just worked so fucking well.
It really does. And yeah, you're right. Like, that was a really good character and a really good performance, because everything that is happening makes sense. Why is he filming makes sense. And he's kind of like the doofy, the doofy kind of dorky guy who is there to document this, but also he's kind of fucking with people a little bit. Like, that's why they think when things start going wrong, they're like, it's got to be Paul. Like, he's got to be doing this because this is just who he is. He's a dorky guy who tries to pull tricks on us and pranks, and that's who he is. And so you understand why he's doing what he's doing. And even like, there are moments when he's filming and they're like, don't film this. Like, they're just like, stop.
Right.
Like,
yes.
They actually address it in the room. They're like,
and guess what, Damon? When they say don't film this, guess what he does? He turns the fucking camera off.
Yeah. Like,
name when that's happened in another found footage movie.
There's so many moments that you would not naturally film anything, and they give reason why it's happening. So I would agree his performance was solid. For me, Patrick, I'll be honest, like, I don't think anyone was truly bad in this movie. I wanted to give a shout out to Alice Balke, who played Diane, the lead documentarian. She felt very genuine as like a reporter asking questions and like the investigative journalist, because that's what I am. So I kind of appreciate her character. But ultimately, I went with Ryan Jennifer Jones as Sarah. Because what I liked about her performance, beyond anything else, in the rare moments that because what I liked about her performance particularly, in the moments when we see her during the documentary, when she is clearly traumatized by what happened. Now, again, this is going without the twist that she's actually dead, but she's very traumatized. When we see her in the house, she's a very jubilant, very upbeat, kind of happy person, but as the longer she stays there, her mood starts getting dampened. Her emotions start getting, toyed with, and you can see like something's wrong. Like she's feeling the effects of this house by the end. Like when they're actually getting to opening night, she's already kind of in a bad place. Like there's that moment where you see her staring over a grave, and they see her staring at the wall one night, and they're like, "Sarah, what are you doing?" Because she's sleepwalking. You kind of see her degrading throughout the movie. You just see this place having an effect on her. And then when you see her during the documentary, she looks like a person who just went through some shit. She's got that, what the Vietnam veterans used to call the 1,000-yard stare.
Totally.
They're just looking off in the distance, not looking at anything, but they're just staring. Like that's like you've seen something in life that you can never escape from. And that's the look on her face. Because one thing I like about it, like she's sitting at the table when they first start interviewing her, and she's just kind of staring down, not really looking at them. And then when they address her, she kind of looks up at them, but kind of not. And you could just tell, like, she's really been traumatized. And so I thought she played that really well. And particularly the reason I note it is because when we see Sarah in the house before all this happened, she's a pretty normal, happy, well-adjusted person.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of those people were well adjusted, but I liked that about them. They were all sort of broken weirdos in their own way, but they were like a tight gang. And it just goes without saying, my best character for the movie was Sarah, so I'll just jump right into that category. She ties everything so fantastically together. That's what I really appreciated about Sarah and what she was able to do. She was able to kind of join the two worlds, the documentary, which you first meet her, and she again looks deeply traumatized, like someone who's gone through an incredibly traumatic thing. She's tying it all back to this footage, and you see her de-evolution over the period of the film. It's a great character, and it's so important. Like she's almost like the wraparound story, like in an anthology. Like you kind of you need the person that kind of anchors it all together, and that's what Sarah's character does.
Yeah, she does really, really well. So her character's great, and I really like that. And again, she really, in a lot of ways, made the movie, if you really want to be honest about it. In terms
Totally.
of what she did for the film. For me, best character, I could have gone a lot of ways, because I know I go back to the documentarian. I thought the documentarian, who was Diane, played by Alice Balke, was very genuine as asking all the right questions, doing the proper investigation, and then the need to see the Abaddon. Well, that's what you would do. If you were actually investigating one of these things, you'd want to see where it happened. As a reporter myself, I kind of applaud that. I'm like, yeah, of course that's what you do. Like the outsider looking in be like, why would you ever go there? The investigative reporter that I am is like, you have to go there. So I appreciate that, but I didn't pick her for best character. My best character is also my least favorite character of the movie, but I picked best character because I appreciated what they did with the character, and that is Danny Bellini as Alex Taylor. Alex Taylor, the leader of the group. He is an asshole. He is driving them to get this job done, and he is the harsh reminder that they have no other choice but to get this job done. He is the reason, in large part, that everyone dies, because he won't allow them to leave, because he keeps reminding them that if they leave, this all goes away, meaning the money, the investment, their livelihoods are done. And so he really becomes the driving force behind the need to stay there. And I said it an hour ago. I said it earlier in the podcast. You said it when you talk about found footage movies in general. Give us a reason that we're there and give us a reason why we're staying there. It has to be more than we're making a documentary. Like
yeah. Or we're being chased by fucking axe wielding people. Let's film this. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the insurance commercial where they kind of make fun of horror movies where they're like, let's hide here. No, let's get in the running car. Let's hide behind the wall of chainsaws. Okay. Like the inexplicable decision making that happens in some horror movies. They give you a reason to stay here, and Alex is that reason. He is the catalyst to basically say, okay, great, leave. You lose fucking everything. And you and I both know in that situation, we'd all be like, shit, we got to stay. Like, we're stuck.
Yeah, we are stuck. They put every last dime of their livelihoods into it. What I appreciated about Alex was that while he was an asshole, he wasn't like comically villainous.
No,
like it made sense. Like he was kind of, he kind of bullied everybody in a very like friend way, in a way like a friend would bully people, as opposed to being like some weird, like having some weird like fascination with having to be there. It made sense. And at times he even kind of broke down. He was like upset. Whether that was manipulative or not, I mean, you could play with that. That's how good the subtlety of all this interaction works in this movie. But he was like, this shit is stressing him out. And when you're stressed out and you don't have a great grasp on your own emotional regulation, you lash out at your friends, you lash out at the people you're close to, because you feel safe enough around them to like push them a little bit. And that's what this character was. He wasn't like, it wasn't the kind of bad guy where you'd be like, you know what? I would tell that guy, fuck you to his face and just walk out. Like, they cared about each other. He cared about what they were doing. He didn't have the greatest tactics in the world, but they weren't so comically bad that you'd be like, why doesn't everyone just leave?
And he also had one thing I also failed to mention. He also had the slightly condescending tone because, as you said earlier in the movie, when weird things start happening, they don't immediately jump to it's ghosts and we're being haunted. When people start realizing there is something going on and there's something really weird about this place, we probably should leave, Alex kind of addresses it in a mocking tone. Like, do you really, he doesn't say this, but like, it's almost like, do you really believe this? Come on. You're a smart person. Do you really believe ghosts exist? And like, there's something haunting this place? And it's like, it's almost like the dare you kind of feeling where the people are like, oh no, of course I don't believe this, even though in the back of their head they're scared shitless and they want to get out. Like, that's that kind of condescending tone. And we all have friends like that. You and I both do. I guarantee you. It's like, why don't you go in the mosh pit of a concert? Well, at this my age, I'll probably break my hip. But they're kind of like, oh dude, it's not that bad. Get in there. Come on. Nothing's going to happen. Jeez, man. I remember when you used to go in the pit all the time. And you're like, all right, I'll get in the pit. And then, you wake up at the hospital 6 hours later. But it's kind of like that friend who kind of dares you into it. They kind of dare you into it. Not like they're not being mean and they're not bullying. But as you said, it's that subtle bullying. It's that condescending tone where he's kind of like, really? You won't sleep in the Abaddon Hotel? Really? Like, you're scared of a hotel? And they're like, no, I'm not scared of a hotel. That's his tone throughout the entire movie a lot of the times when he's interacting with people. And then on top of that, he does serve as the harsh reality reminder that leaving means we're done. We're broke. We're finished. And they all have an investment to make sure this thing works.
Yeah. No, it's very effective. It's logical.
Yeah, which, doesn't happen in a lot of movies in general, much less.
Yeah, a lot of movies in general. Yeah. I don't need to pick on found footage for that.
Let's talk about best scare because, Patrick, I'll be honest, there are several really good, effective scares this movie. And I got one picked out that is, to this day, probably one of my top 3 jump scares of all time, where I was personally, I literally jumped back in my seat and my skin crawled. But let you go first.
No, Damon, don't leave me hanging like that. You jump back in your seat on a scare, I gotta know.
Okay, so it's about midway through the movie when they're touring the house and they go through the kitchen and I think it's Paul who's filming, or I can't remember if it's Paul or one of the other guys who's filming, but he walks up and he sees the clown mannequin standing at the top of the basement stairs. And the guy's like, how'd you get there? Like, it's a mannequin. And he's just kind of like, whatever. And this is where found footage actually works. Because they filmed the clown, he's at a side profile. And the clown's just kind of looking down into the basement. And it's kind of creepy. And you're like, how did this clown get here? And so he kind of moves around the room, looks like, and he flashes the camera back, and the clown is staring at him. That fucking freaked me out so badly when I saw it, because it was just so, and he was right close up into it. He was like right up on the clown. And so like he turned away and then turned right back into it, and the clown is staring at him. I jumped out of my seat. I'm not going to lie. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, what was that? It was just the most subtle yet brilliant scare, because they already set you up by the clown being there in the first place.
Yeah.
And then you don't really necessarily expect that it's going to turn and look at him. And when it turns and looks at him, man, did it make my skin crawl.
There's a couple of great clown moments in there. The one where there's like three clowns sitting like on the floor, and they go off to one thing, and then when they turn the camera back, all the clowns are looking at them, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And then he runs. I can't remember, he runs away or something. And when they come back to it, all the clowns are looking ahead again, and they're like fucking trying to move their heads, and they're like, "Oh, these things are like mannequins. They don't turn. Their heads don't move. That doesn't make sense." Just simple little gags, man. Really easy. And boy, do I remember all those clown gags really fucking up my wife big time. She was like, "What the fuck are they doing? This is fucked up."
I think that one that I had was the first one. The first time
I think it might have
like
been
the clown, like when the clown's standing there and then you turn and it's looking at you. That just, man, it definitely got me. I was like, it definitely made me jump, made my skin crawl, and I was just like, it's just, I knew it was coming when I rewatched it the other night, and it's still like sent a shiver down my spine. It's like, I knew it was coming. It's like, here it comes. Oh, there it is.
They're gonna do it. They fucking did it. But my best scare, I don't remember being this scared of it the last time I watched it. My best scare was the girl in Paul's room. So at one point, like we talked earlier about like the cloaked silhouetted figure walking into his room when he's doing a little thing. Later on in the movie, he's doing his little video diary in the room, and like it's dark at first, and he turns on the camera, which that might be the only time in the movie where I was like, why does he have the camera on? Like, that's the only time I could ever think like, this makes no sense that he has the camera on. But also, things have been happening, so it might make sense for him to turn the camera on.
Doesn't he also turn it on to use the light, because there's a light on the camera? Isn't that also?
I think that might have been it too. They were I remember things being very practical. He turns that light on, but he doesn't quite look into the room yet. He just turns the light on, and there's a girl sitting against the wall, and she doesn't look well, Damon. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of fucking fucked up. And he doesn't quite notice her at first. And then he does. He's like, oh shit. And he does the classic, the primal reaction. Damon, when you were a child, what did you do when you were in your bed and something scared you? Damon, answer me this question.
You hid under your covers, because that would keep you safe.
He went to a childlike state and fucking ducked under his covers. And this scene is so fucking brilliant, Damon, because the camera got under there with him, and he's breathing heavy. We never turn to him, but he's breathing heavy, and you see the covers, the sheets, being lit up by the camera light. And he's so fucking freaked because there should not be somebody sitting against his wall. And then you're like, he has to look, and he pulls the cover up, and he looks, and she looks at him as very jarring. And he fucking was like, and he fucking closes the sheets again. And he's like, he's got to muster up the strength to do something, but he's terrified. And when he lifts it up again, she's right fucking there. She's right at him. She's coming right at him. And then from that point on, Paul's not well from that point on. Just a tremendously good scare. Just that whole hiding under the sheets gag, like that function, for that alone, I will give Stephen Cognetti like a place in horror history. It's just a brilliant setup and payoff, like in a single scene. I absolutely love that scare. That's my favorite scare in this whole movie.
So, one thing I want to mention, I kind of talked about my scare as well. Do you notice that both of those scares involve you? You need, with those two scares in particular, you need it to be found footage.
Yep.
You need it to be the point of view of the person. So when the clown, when he goes into like he's just taping all the stuff they put up. That's what he's doing. He's like, and here's the demented Beanie Babies, and here's this, and here's this, and here's the kitchen, and oh shit, how did you get out here? Like, how did this? Who put you here? And he just continues looking around. He turns back, and the thing's looking at him. Terrifying, scary. Totally didn't see it coming. Very, very horrifying moment. But it all makes sense, and you needed that moment to be in his point of view because he's kind of right up on it. He sees it, and he goes back, and it's staring at him. Oh, shit, very jolting. The under-the-cover trick only works in found footage. It doesn't work if the camera's down on him, and he's under the blankets, and then you see him pull up, and the thing's in front of him. It works so much better when he pulls up the cover, he's scared out of his mind, he peeks around, and there's the thing right in his face. That's why it works, and that's why this version of found footage works so well. It's brilliant because they use the found footage to their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they did in the Blair Witch Project. All the ways they used the camera footage in the Blair Witch Project made it that much scarier because it was found footage. That's exactly these two scares. And you know, even the one I mentioned earlier in the hallway where he's filming and the strobe lights and everything happens, it all happens perfectly, and it only happens because it's happening with the found footage. It's a first person point of view camera view. It's brilliant, and this is every one of these that happens like that. And there's more. Let me be clear. There's more than just these three we mentioned. There's several in this film.
Several.
All of them happen because of found footage, because the first person point of view. And they all work really effective, and they're all fairly simple. They're not overly thought out or overly complicated, but they all work. And again, that clown thing to this day, top 3 jump scare for me of all time. Like, not even kidding. Like, everyone always talks about The Conjuring and Insidious and all these movies like made them jump out of their skin. Nothing wrong with those movies. I liked The Conjuring, and I kind of dug Insidious as well. I really like The Conjuring too, actually. Nothing has gotten me jumping out of my seat the way that clown turning its head at me, man. That one, shoo boy. And the scene in the bedroom, the one you're talking about, same thing. I remembered it, liked it. When I rewatched it, I remembered it, liked it, and it got me better the second time.
Definitely got me better the second time. And that, I think that segues perfectly into our next category, Damon.
Yes. Please tee this one up.
This is, now obviously we've gone on and on about how much we like this movie tonight. So I posed the question to the group here. What can the found footage genre learn from this movie? What can House LLC teach the found footage genre that, Damon, let's be honest with, I have more of a hate-love relationship than any love-hate relationship with. I genuinely am just not a fan of this genre in particular because I think it lets me down a lot. What do you think, Damon? Why is House LLC one of the best? And what can the rest of found footage learn from it?
I don't want to just get repetitive with a lot of the talking points we had earlier about what we dislike about found footage, but in a lot of ways I have to revolve back around that because that's what this film does so well that other found footage movies can take from this. I'll tackle 2 points in particular just on the story level, and then I'll let you go crazy because I know you love found footage.
Mm-hmm.
One, more than anything, this is number one, point blank, the major thing you can take away from this movie. And this is not unique to House LLC. Let me say that first. Like, this is not only House LLC. But number one, beyond anything else, give us a reason to be there. Whatever that reason is. In Blair Witch, they're lost. They can't escape. In this film, they have a financial investment. They can't leave or they're broke. Give us a reason to be there more than, oh, we just want to be in a haunted house filming creepy shit. Okay? Give us a legitimate reason to be there. And also, I guess, to a larger extent, why we stay there. Okay? Give us
logic.
And then number two, and I think this is the big one, and I know I'm probably still a little bit of what your answer is going to be here. Make the found footage make sense. Don't give us everything. What I like about House LLC is they're there for like, they don't actually like lay out the timeline, but you have to imagine it's like any other haunted house. It's opening on like October 1st and it runs through October 31st. So they had to be there like a month early. So this whole thing takes place over like 4 or 5 weeks. We're not seeing every intimate conversation. We're not seeing every like interaction at breakfast and every interaction, like none of that. They're just getting us to the key points of what we need to get to and why we need to get there. And that is all it needs to be. It does not need to be beating you over the head with every second of every conversation. As you said, there is no one in their right mind who would be having a totally intimate conversation with their friends and someone just walks up and is like, oh, let me film this because I need to film everything. That would never happen. And it annoys the hell out of me when that is the basis of found footage, is we film everything. Because no, you wouldn't film everything. And so they just splice it together well enough to where you know what's happening, you know why it's happening, and what's happening to them, but it's all happening over 4 or 5 weeks, and it's just all kind of spliced together into this one film. So those are two things in particular I think found footage could take a huge lesson from this movie.
I agree with you. The very first one is a reiteration of what you're saying, which is the more you film, the less scary this thing is going to end up. You think you need to film every little thing. You think you need to film expository dialogue. You don't. This movie comes in late to conversations. This movie comes in late to crazy things happening, and it's very effective. So film less. And some people will go, hey, wait a minute. Film less. I got to make a 90-minute movie. No, you don't. One of the scariest movies, the scientifically scariest movies of all time, that list has come out a couple years in a row now, is Host. You know how long Host is? It's under an hour. You don't need your movie to be 90 minutes. You sure as shit don't need a 2-hour found footage movie. I promise you, you don't. Promise you, you don't. Film less. Show less. Come into conversations late. By the way, regular screenwriters do that all the time. They do it tactfully. There's a different art to that for a standard fiction or narrative feature film. But do the found footage version of it, where you come into a conversation late. You're picking up only a piece of what the whole conversation was, for a good reason. Again, like you said, use the footage, use the found footage element to make that all make sense. So be tighter with it. And here's another little something I'm going to throw in there. And a lot of found footage is doing this lately, and it's fucking it up. Stop shooting everything on a beautiful cinema camera. So many new found footage films like shoot everything on a great camera. It does not sell this. At best, shoot it on an iPhone with no lighting. Start to make the footage look like footage again. Look like amateur footage again. If you make everything look like, and even like, here was a big offender of this. It was a big movie at the time too. Was that, oh shit, what's it fucking called? Death. The fuck was the name of that one? It was really big. Oh, this is going to bug me. Anyway, it was too clean. Like the movies are just too clean looking. House LLC looks dirty. It looks rotten. It looks fucked up. The footage looks fucked up. The footage looks like it was shared by 10 people and you're getting a really compressed bad version of it.
Yeah.
That is aesthetic. They talk about the found footage aesthetic. That's the aesthetic that sells. And I know all the found footage fans are like, you're fucking wrong, because I love all those movies. I'm like, well, but do you want them to look like found footage, or do you want them to look like a feature film that's just somebody's pointing a camera all around? Because then it doesn't sell like it's real. Found footage should sell like it's real, even if it's insane, even if it's shit that really doesn't work at all for me. It needs to like I need to believe that I'm seeing real footage. And when you're shooting on a great camera, or a camera that's so clean in HD, It doesn't sell that way. It looks like you're shooting a movie, but you're just shooting it with a found footage perspective.
And to that point also, I talked about earlier about like give us a reason to be there. Give us a reason you're filming. You know,
Yes.
don't go beyond just like we're filming because we want to film everything. Like in simplest terms, Blair Witch Project was making a documentary. So they were basically getting B-roll throughout this entire film. And then when things start going haywire, it was almost like their what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like their comfort blanket in a way. Like that was how they made themselves like feel human again, was by continuing to film like their own. It's almost like we're lost, we're probably going to die, but at least if we're filming, we feel like we're still doing what we came out here to do. It's almost like their little slice of humanity
Right.
hold on to. This film, they're documenting building this haunted house. This is what they do every year. They build a haunted house. They document everything they're doing so they can either repeat it or change what they do the next year. You understand? They have security cameras set up throughout the entire house because that's what they have to do because it's a haunted house. And I'm talking like the Halloween haunted house, not like a real haunted house. Like they're setting it up as a haunted attraction. So they have cameras everywhere. They're filming everything. It all makes sense why they're doing it. Every found footage film tries to find a reason why you're filming everything, and beyond even like the whole like you wouldn't film the intimate conversation. I'm just saying like beyond like everything can't be we're making a documentary. While Blair Witch did that brilliantly, and we understand that, again, where I applaud Paranormal Activity is they were filming it because they were trying to capture paranormal activity on camera. So that's why they had the camera set up and they were filming at night and while they're gone and all these kind of things. They're trying to capture it on film. This film, they're trying to film them making this haunted attraction. It keeps going on and on. Like, why are you filming all this? If it's just because you are an obsessed influencer and you're just trying to blog everything, okay, I guess that works. But give us a reason why you're there, but give us a reason why you're filming. Give us something beyond just, I'm filming it. It can't all be a documentary. Not everything, not every found footage movie can come down to, oh, we were filming a movie and or / we were filming a documentary.
Yeah, it can't. I mean, and boy, is it even a movie like Outwaters that tries to go, well, we were filming a music video, and then things go haywire. I have different problems with. You can go back and listen to the Outwaters if you want to know why I have problems with the movie. That movie at least tried to make sense of why they were filming. It's just what they were filming wasn't interesting. That camera just kept on fucking going.
But even then, I was like, and not to just go back and badger that film, but you're filming a music video. You don't need to film everything. Like,
why would you be filming all that extra shit? Like I've shot and directed many
music videos. You've made music videos.
There is not one video of me going, here am I making the music video. It doesn't exist. That video does not exist. It's just, and I have even shot like making of music videos. I did one for that band Fun when they had their huge hit, like Tonight. I was the behind the scenes guy, but I shot it like a little documentary, and then that's it. It's like I shot for like an hour. You know, you don't shoot incessantly on and on and on for days on end when you're getting ready to make your music video. You just don't. Like it's we cannot get into an Outwaters discussion. We'll never get out of here.
But that's the point, is that while what we're saying doesn't seem like people who are listening are probably laughing, like you're just making it sound. But the reality is, even though I'm a little bit more lukewarm to found footage than you are, Patrick, and the reason I think I'm a little bit more lukewarm to it is because I have actually felt some genuine scares watching some found footage movies. So I think I can overlook some of the flaws. You obviously have a much bigger issue, but I, for the most part, agree with everything you say. Like the only reason I can come down and settle a little bit more into enjoying found footage is because I do genuinely enjoy some of the scares that happen in found footage, like Blair Witch, like Paranormal Activity, and like House LLC. But again, I'm mentioning one more movie than you are. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm mentioning like, oh, this movie and this movie and this movie and this movie.
Right. You just happen to like Paranormal Activity, and I don't.
Yeah, and I like Mungo, which we both like. So it's kind of like, you know, I like one more found footage movie than you do. So when I say that I'm a bigger fan, I'm not really that big of a fan. But I do give credit to some of the scares that are really well done. But even some of the scares that are well done in some of those movies, I'm kind of like, but why are you filming?
Yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just my little, my little indication here. All right. Yeah. So again, here's what's frustrating real quick, Patrick. Here's what's frustrating. House LLC doesn't necessarily reinvent the genre.
No.
They just do the genre right.
Mm-hmm. They really do.
So effective. It's scary. It's a good story. Everything, all the boxes are checked.
Yeah.
But it's not reinventing the wheel.
Nope. They just do it best. They just do it best because I think what Steve Cognetti did was he made sure that every little element mattered, and that is missing from so many found footage movies these days. And I hear a lot of bullshit because guess what, Damon? I'm a filmmaker and I've had to bullshit my way through why we shot something. The truth is, most of the time, why we shot something was because, something got fucked up on the day, so we just had to make it work like this. But then, no. You see the character, what they were doing in this moment really reflects this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we left a light back at the house and we were like 20 miles away and we had to shoot this because the sun was going down. That's why we filmed that. So found footage filmmakers think they need to film all this extra shit. Stephen Cognetti said, no, you need to film what is going to scare the shit out of people. Not because conversations in back rooms are not scary. It just rarely has a conversation ever been scary. It's got to scare you. It's got to surprise you. And then the payoff is that everything interconnects, everything interlocks and makes it so that you get a full-fledged scare experience.
Yeah. We turned this into a larger referendum on found footage movies. But the reality is that House LLC is so well done. Blair Witch Project is so well done that it sets the bar really high for what shouldn't be an ultra difficult genre to tackle necessarily, but you just gotta do it the right way. Because when it's done correctly, when it's done in a logical way, you get House LLC, which is brilliant and scary and original, yet, as we've said, I don't want to keep repeating myself, doesn't try to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
It sticks to a pretty simple formula, but then gives you everything you could ever want in a found footage movie.
All I want is to be scared. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Truth be told. And House LLC does that.
Absolutely. All right, Patrick, let's move on to our next category, which is, can we survive this horror movie? I'm always curious about this question because you and I like to inject ourselves into the films that we are reviewing, and we like to ask ourselves, would we actually survive in this situation? Now, I'll go first here, Patrick, because my typical answer in this situation would be, what is my answer to every time we're in a haunted house?
I'm getting the fuck out.
Exactly. Here's why I don't survive House LLC, because I can't get the fuck out. My financial investment is tied up into this.
Yeah.
My livelihood is tied up into this. If I leave, I'm broke and destitute, and I got nothing else to fall back on. So guess what? I gotta stay. I got no choice to stay. I'm going to end up in that basement, and I'm going to get fucking murdered by a clown, and I'm going to die in terror because it's going to be horrible and awful, and it's going to be bad. So by that measure alone, I can't sit here and say I would survive because you have to give me a reason to stay. And if my entire livelihood is tied up into making this haunted attraction work, I'm stuck. I got no out, so I'm not going to make it out. And unless I turn into Sarah, where I'm the one who dies and lures more people back into the Abaddon Hotel, I'm just dead. So, yeah, killer clown who scared the piss out of me, go ahead and slash me up because I ain't making it.
And I'm in the same boat. What, right? We can't pick the easy one, which is, well, I'll just get the fuck out of there. We can't. And honestly, I kind of loved after watching House LLC, it kind of made me want to start a haunted house. I was like, that would actually be really fucking cool. Like a cool thing to do. But yeah, there's no getting out. I mean, we're dealing with supernatural forces, the cloaked beings, which we don't know their origins, or do we? Or is our origins coming, Damon? That's a good question. We don't know what they are, but we just know that they don't work on our plane of existence. and they will fuck with us until we are either hanging or bleeding from the eyes, or are there, their indentured ghost that has to lure other ghosts into the Abaddon.
Can I also, real quick, before we get to our last category, which is it scary? Can I also mention real quick? You talked about the frantic chaos of the last scenes in the Abaddon before we get to Sarah's really a ghost thing, the whole, just the ending.
Yeah,
we see it at the beginning, and then we understand what's happening at the end. That ending of, and when I say the ending in the Abaddon Hotel of the original opening night,
the night of the haunted house,
the night of the haunted house, it's so like crazy and chaotic, but it works so well. And I'll tell you the part that really got me, that really made me feel it in my gut, was when they go down in that basement and the damsel in distress is screaming bloody murder to let her free because the guy who had the key basically fucked off. He's like, I'm out of here. This is real, and I'm gone. So he was the guy supposedly dressed in the clown costume, and he had the key hidden that he was going to be able to unlock her, and she's standing there in her bra and panties as like the scared girl tied in the basement. He fucks off. He's like, I'm out of here. This is getting too real for me. I'm done. And so when they're in the basement, all this crazy stuff, and again, you don't really know what's happening. You can't really see what's happening, but you do see the girl get slashed up and killed, but it's all in this like frantic, blurry, chopped up vision, but it's bad, screaming, and everyone's trying to get upstairs and they can't get out the door and all this different stuff's happening. That whole chaos of that, I adore that scene because you really feel in that moment how everything is going haywire, and it's all predicated on the actress freaking the fuck out because she's supposed to act scared, but when she's sitting there begging for someone to let her free because the guy with the key already left, things have gone horribly bad. And I love that scene for how simple it is, but for how scary it is.
And by the way, you mentioned something, Damon. That guy did get out, but he didn't survive. Yeah. He got the fuck out, but the house had poisoned him. The mansion had poisoned him. And so he got out, sure. But when he got out, he was never right again. And when they went to go interview him for the documentary, he hung himself.
Yeah.
Right. So, but damn well the things hung him. That's what happened.
Yeah. But it's just so that whole scene, that whole frantic scene at that, because we don't really know exactly what happens. Like we do see when Paul kills Sarah, we see that happening. And we do see something happen to that girl when the clown stands up and goes after her, and we assume it like guts her or whatever. But it's just so terrifying. And also, what's also really scary about it, what I love about it, is there's a room full of people. There's like 20 people in this basement. Like they're on a haunted attraction tour. It's not like one guy down there and he's freaking out. There's 20 people down there and they're like, what the hell is going on down here? And
they're panicking. There's confusion. It's chaotic. You can't see everything. It puts you in a very realistic situation, which would be actually kind of fucking freaky.
Yeah, really scary. Just a very well orchestrated ending in that scene. And again, because they don't show you everything, but what they do show you is pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
That leads me into our final category, as always, Patrick, which is the basic question of why we do this podcast, which is it scary? So I think people can probably figure this one out ahead of time. But with House LLC, Patrick, is it scary?
It is scary. In a very classic sense. I told you I'd say it many times on this podcast, and I have. It taps into a primal fear. It just taps into the fear of what's in the dark. Fear that there is something in the dark there. When you're a kid, you're scared of the dark because you think something's in it. And you think that clown that you're scared of, that your crazy aunt bought you, that its head moved, right? This movie taps into all of that, and it does it so simply and so effectively, and for that it is scary, but it's a fun scary. It's something like I want to revisit at least once a year. I want to be able to get into some House LLC once a year because it's a shining beacon in an otherwise fucking dreary bay that is the fucking the found footage genre itself that very rarely delivers on scares, that very rarely delivers on atmosphere, that very rarely delivers on realism, on the actual idea of found footage. It very rarely does that. This movie does that.
Yeah, this movie is absolutely scary. As I mentioned earlier, going all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, when I talked to that guy in the UPS store, and I was like, I'll be honest, not a lot scares me, but here's a couple things you can watch that genuinely terrified me when I watched them. And I mentioned Session 9, which we haven't ever reviewed on this show. One day we will get to. That movie genuinely freaked me out. And House LLC, and I mentioned this earlier, the reason why I say it may have slightly surpassed Blair Witch Project is because I just saw this film for the first time a year ago and it freaked me out then. It was very scary. Made me jump in my seat, had my skin crawling a couple different times. And rewatching it now, I was just so enthusiastic because it was just like, I'm waiting for it and I know they're coming and it's so great and so well executed. Over and over and over again. And as you said, simple. They're not overly complicated scares. They just get down to the primal root of what we are scared of, and then they scare us. And this film has that in spades. If you love found footage, you are going to be terrified for this movie. If you're a mediocre or not even a found footage fan, much like Patrick,
here I am.
This is a film that you will enjoy and will scare you, will genuinely scare you in certain moments. And I love that. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, I'm not afraid of clowns. I'm not one of those people that has coulrophobia. It really doesn't. But the clown in this movie definitely got me scared a couple of times. And they use that clown very effectively. They hide it at the bottom of the stairs. They have the fucking clown keeps showing up. And you're like, what the fuck? It is. It's just really effective and very simple, but it works. So, yeah, this is a terrifying movie. As I said, this is one of the few movies when it was over, when I watched it the first time, I was like, damn, they really got me this time.
I think I want to go watch it after this podcast is over. Like, I'm just kind of pumped about it. Like, it's a fucking good movie.
It is. So real quick before we get out of here, let me give you the teaser, what we have coming, because at the beginning of the podcast, Patrick mentioned, and people are probably curious, why are we reviewing the original House LLC as opposed to the new one? There was a new Hell House that came out just recently called House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor, which you and I have both seen, but we didn't review tonight. Why do we not review that? Because in a matter of days, we'll be posting a special episode, a conversation with myself, Patrick, and House LLC creator, writer, and director, Stephen Cognetti. He's going to join us for an interview. We're going to put that up on the YouTube channel, put it up on the podcast channel in a couple days. So that's why we're not reviewing the new film, because we want to actually talk to him about the new film. And also, I'm sure we'll be sitting there, praising and sharing our adoration for the original House LLC, because Stephen Cognetti is the brain behind all of it. He is the writer and director of all these films. And so we're excited to talk to him about the new one, but that's why we didn't review the new one versus going back and reviewing this one from 8 years ago.
Yeah, and we do have a policy, a loose policy here, that if we're going to interview the director about the film that they're promoting, we try not to review the film. It's just a way to kind of keep our integrity up, like so that people know that we're being honest about our review and not just being nice to our filmmaker guest. So we won't be reviewing House LLC Origins, but I am excited to talk to Stephen Cognetti because he'll be our first franchise director. We haven't had a franchise director on yet. We've had a lot of great filmmakers on that we love and respect, but this is the first one who he built a franchise all on his own, and I can't wait to dig into that with him and talk. He'll talk up House LLC Origins and promote that a little bit if you haven't seen it yet. I'm sure by the time you listen to that interview, you're going to want to see it.
And all of the House LLC movies are available on Shudder, I mentioned earlier. And they actually did a watch along the other night with Stephen Cognetti. And so you can see all that on Twitter. They live tweeted the House LLC director's cut, and then they watched House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor. So that's all out there on Twitter if you want to check that stuff out when they did that. So stay tuned. We will have an interview coming very soon with House LLC writer, director, and creator Stephen Cognetti, and we can't wait for that. As always, folks, we appreciate you tuning in each and every week to the show. Obviously, if you have questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review, things that you loved about Hell House, or maybe you didn't like House LLC, tell us about it. Send us messages on social media. We are on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead. You can also find us where all your favorite podcast platforms are. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and please, 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 go over and like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead. If you ever got questions, you just want to reach out to us personally, we do have our own social media channels, and you can reach us there. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick and Patrick of the Living Dead on TikTok.
And I am Damon of the Living Dead I'm Damon of the Dead on TikTok. So go like our TikTok channels as well. We post little mini reviews over there. I did one on American Horror Story, the new American Horror Story recently, where Kim Kardashian proves she can't act. Done little ones on films you've seen. So yeah, go over and check out our TikTok channels as well. We do little mini reviews and things over there as well. So check that out if you have time, and subscribe to those channels as well. A big thank you as always for everyone that tunes in each and every week here to Rewind of the Living Dead. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Peace.